If you're on a ship going across the ocean, technology is not the ship. Technology is the GPS that we have. Technology is the new electric rowers, so that you don't necessarily have all this manpower, but it will never be the ship.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, powered by MRI Network, where each week we talk with the world's top talent strategists and executive recruiters. If you want to build talented teams that drive your company to big goals and big growth, then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Holt with the Talent Hunters. And today we've got a power hitter amongst us, Riley Phillips, Director of Recruiting with the Newell Group, located in Greenville, South Carolina. Welcome, Riley.
Thanks, Vince. I really appreciate you having me. I'm really excited.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you. And I want to tell you something. At the beginning of these things, I've kind of challenged myself to personalize it a little bit.
Sure.
So with you, a little birdie told me that you are a distant relative, and he's smiling, to Judy Garland.
Yeah. To Judy Garland, absolutely. Judy Garland's actual name was Ethel Gum, and Judy Garland is a stage name. And so Judy Garland was my great, great, great aunt. I have never met her. She was a very distant relative on my mom's side, kind of going back to some of the family that we have in Louisiana. But that is always kind of my claim to fame is, I am related distantly to Judy Garland, Dorothy.
Which makes you related to Liza Minnelli.
It does. It does. Once again, never met Liza, but somewhere down the family tree, you will see Judy, you will see Liza, and then way off here, kind of in the corner and a couple of lines over, you'll see Riley, Jay, and Jared, my two other brothers.
I love it. And thank you for the story. So to start this out professionally, 16 years recruiting, 13 years with the Newell Group.
Yes.
You focus on orthodontics, prosthetics, allied healthcare. Riley, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you where you are today with the Newell Group.
Absolutely. I mean, so first off, I do want to kind of reiterate that, recruiting is one of those things that a lot of times when you're younger, you don't necessarily picture that's where you're going to be, right? I believe it or not, I wanted to be a professional golfer and I've always been a pretty good golfer even to this day, but I was never quite good enough to get paid on Sundays, as they would say. And then I went to Coastal Carolina University in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Originally went to school for professional golf management, decided that I'm probably a little too ADD to work in a pro shop all day. And my uncle owned a heavy industrial engineering and construction staffing company. So after my sophomore year, I would come home in the summers and work for him. And then we would, it was mostly like perm placement, some project-based recruiting for engineering and construction services. And so I made my first placement when I was 19 years old on a nuclear project just north of Shanghai, China. And then I got a little commission off of that, and it paid for my semester of college. And I kind of thought, wow, this is amazing. And fast forward a couple years, I graduated and wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but luckily I had some of that recruiting experience to fall back on. And this was in 2010. And then I just got a random call from someone named Gina Baxter, who had just launched the orthotics and prosthetics desk here at the Newell Group, asking me if I would be interested in being a recruiter. And I came in and I interviewed, and that was 14 years ago. And I will tell you, it is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And then honestly, Vince, as we kind of go through this, I've got an interesting story. I was kind of one of those guys that had to leave to find my way back home. I did actually enter corporate America for about a year and a half as a corporate recruiter, and love the people I work with. It was a great opportunity. It just wasn't quite for me. And then, when the opportunity came up for me to come back to the Newell Group in a leadership position, in the industry that I grew up in. And I mean that so much. I mean, I got hired straight out of college. I've been recruiting half my life at this point, which is really kind of funny to think about. I know I look a little bit younger. I'll tell you a funny story. We had sales training last week for HireQuest. Fantastic, by the way. Mark Winter did such a great job. I've been to quite a bit of sales training, obviously with the 13 years that I've worked with MRI and with the Newell Group, and really liked how they were able to kind of speak in our language and so forth. But afterward, I went up to him and I was just like, hey, thank you so very much. I just want to tell you, this is amongst the best sales training that I've had in my career as a recruiter. And he kind of jokingly said, oh, what, about 4 or 5 years? And I said, well, 16, but I definitely see where you're coming from.
Love that you wanted to be a professional golfer. So what's your handicap today?
Probably about a 5. I don't practice. As who does anymore, right? When you have all these things going on and you're running a desk. But I luckily, I still have a lot of the fundamentals. And so on the right day, if my timing's on, I can go out and shoot even par. I will say my boss, Danny, will give me a little bit for telling you this, but I did shoot my best round in 14 years with him over the summer, 71 at the links at Tryon. And Danny played really well, shot 76, and I got him a little bit. But I will tell you, if I go out today and if I break 80, I think I've had a good day. And in the middle of the summer, when the game's on and we're kind of off Gamecock football season, which is, I'm sure, something we'll talk a little bit about today, I can kind of get into a little groove for about a month or two where I'm playing really, really well. And then my sports teams come back and golf kind of goes to the back burner. And then we do this every year, spring and summer, and it's cyclical, right?
Well, I've played golf with Danny. I played with him in Ireland. I played with him in pace setter trips and so forth. And his round of 18 is my round of 9. And so,
oh yeah.
So
Danny's sneaky good.
He is incredibly good.
And he will 6 feet in. You just might as well go ahead and count it, right?
That's right. So, what do you feel you attribute your success to that has really driven? I mean, you're consistently a top 50 recruiter within MRI. That's a statement, Riley. It really is. And
I appreciate that.
What do you attribute to that success directly?
A couple things. Number one, I had the perfect situation at the right time getting into not recruiting. I mean, when I was recruiting in college and whatnot, that was great experience, but it wasn't quite in my career yet. And so I had the perfect kind of situation to where I came in under a pace setter AE, launching a desk in an industry that was underserved. And then I have always been the type of guy, I mean, Vince, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I ride the roller coaster, man. I am, you usually know kind of what day I'm having by the color red my face is and what have you. But, I just had the right people to kind of point me in the right direction and harness my focus a little bit to the point to where I became enthralled in my industry. And even to this day, if somebody asks me, what I do, and it is not, a recruiter or somebody, let's say I'm just out and about playing golf, what do I do? I say, I work in the artificial limb business. And I truly, truly feel that. And so for the last 14 years, I've really just been able to kind of harness my focus, and the shift, the real growth has been the shift from being a vendor to an advisor. And the best way that I can describe it is maybe relating it a little bit to when you're going and looking for a wealth advisor or something like that. One of the words that you look for is fiduciary, and fiduciary means that they've got to act in your best interest, regardless of what they have to gain. And that is something that I really, really pride myself in. I've been doing this for 13 years. I came back to the Newell Group in 2018. I think since 2018, I've blanked 3 months in billing. 3 months in billings. And as great as that is, it's not always in the moment. And recruiting success a lot of times is a lagging indicator. And sometimes it's just hard. It is hard to understand in the moment, you've got to do the right thing for whoever it is you're working with, whether it is a customer, whether it is a candidate, and it will come back to you. And that's, for someone who's been in the same industry for 13 years, I can't stress that enough, is we have got to be advisors to the people that we work with. We have got to provide value. We're providing information. And just think about all the places we can get information nowadays. Now, I think it makes what we do even more important than it ever has been, to really be able to kind of cut out the noise and focus in on things that are most important to all of the people involved.
What I find interesting is you came back to the business in 2018. You had a little bit of time to be able to get your feet back under you. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says, okay? COVID hit us all from the standpoint. I'm not saying we were all sick. COVID hit us all financially, economically, business-wise, personal-wise, everything. We knew somebody, if it wasn't us, we knew somebody very, very close that was hit by COVID.
Absolutely.
That's the personal side. The professional side was nobody knew what to do. Since then, obviously, you've recovered. I mean, everybody weathered the storm that's still in the business today. But what is something that you could share with, whether it was clients or candidates that you work with, okay? What's something that you can share that over the last 3 years has really been the keel of you moving forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and like we maybe even mentioned a little bit in the opening, is getting more face to face with my clients and with my candidates. We obviously did have a big challenge with COVID. And it affected a lot of different industries, including mine. One of the things, I work a lot with organizations that are healthcare providers. And so you've got multiple people obviously coming in and out of these facilities. And there was a lot of rules and regulations. They weren't letting sales reps in, patients were waiting out in their cars and so forth like that. And so I think the industry as a whole got just a little bit disconnected to maybe as we have been connected before. And then as we kind of get out of post-COVID, I really made it a priority to meet face to face as many people as I can. And so every year I go to the trade show. Every year that I travel, if I'm going somewhere that I've got contacts close by, I will reach out to them. Just last week we did the sales training in Las Vegas. That's another story for another time. And while I was there, I had dinner with a candidate, just so, hey, I know we haven't met face to face. I'm going to be there. Can I take you out? And, by the time that, we were halfway done, it's probably not someone, at least right now, that I'm going to be able to place based on what's going on in their career. But, they've given me some names and there's just a trust there about, it just becomes more real. And so I've always been someone, to just be honest with you, Vince, I've always been a little manic. And I certainly don't mean that as a negative. I'm kind of one of those people that as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about orthotics and prosthetics and what I'm going to do today. And the last thing I think about before I go to sleep is orthotics and prosthetics and what I did yesterday. And just having kind of that focus to continue doing, what I've done from the day-to-day tactics that go into, being a good recruiter. And then being face-to-face, I just feel like makes it more real. With all of the advancements in technology, we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're also less face-to-face than we've ever been. And I don't think that you ever will have something that fully replaces that. And so a lot of the customers and candidates that I work with, I'm in a very niche industry, which I'm sure we'll kind of get into. There's certain people I've placed multiple times. There's people that, I placed when they were residents and board eligible practitioners that are now clinic managers and vice presidents of clinical services. And I'm kind of working with them on that side. But having an opportunity to meet these people face to face after years of working, go up, shake their hand. There's a real person on both sides. It's just meant so much to my business, because it's just reinforcing that trust factor, which at the end of the day, I mean, You've got to trust the people you work with. And most of the time you want to work with people you like. And that's something that has been important to me and will be important to me.
So I love the fact that you bring up the word trust many, many times in that last comment. But you don't meet all your employers and you don't meet all your candidates face to face.
Agreed.
So how do, and this is a double-edged sword question, okay? One is going to be on your side and one is on who you're talking to's side. So let's start on your side because your time is money, okay?
It is.
How do you learn how to trust a candidate or a company client, okay, when you're not meeting them face to face?
Asking the best questions that you possibly can, asking open-ended questions, trying to get to the root of, whatever problem it is they're trying to solve. And then honestly, and I keep going back to, you got to be honest, you got to be a fiduciary, and then presenting the information that they're looking for in an honest way, that reflects your knowledge, your skill set, and your understanding of the marketplace and how it will impact exactly what it is that they are trying to achieve. And so I'll give you an example of what I mean. I'm in an industry that, myself, and I've got a senior recruiter that works for me named Haley Morris. We probably got about 50 to 60 positions at one time. And I am working on all of them kind of concurrently. And so I may talk to a particular candidate and we're speaking about this position. And then one thing they say, it shifts focus to me. Well, hey, have you thought about this? Is this something that, and the more that you do that and the more that you listen and ask the right questions, it just kind of naturally starts to build trust. And if you're being a true advisor to the people that you work with, like I said, it always comes back to you. And you've just got to be as honest as you can. You've got to relay the information. Candidates, companies, anyone involved with the industry, when they're reaching out to me, generally speaking, they're seeking some type of information. Mm-hmm. What positions are available? What if I want to do this? How do you recommend I get there? Same thing with organizations when they reach out. Hey, we're looking to hire a certified process orthotist. Tell me a little bit about your process. Tell me about your success. What is happening in the marketplace, right? As recruiters, and especially as really, really good recruiters, we're kind of like the conduits of information. We give them access to the things that are most important to them, related to the people in the marketplace, obviously, as well as the organizations that can best utilize them.
So that's gaining trust. That's the people you're talking to gaining trust in you because of your honesty and so forth.
How do I get
That's
trust
the
in
other
them?
side of the sword is how do you learn? So because time is money, how do you decipher who you're going to trust and spend that collateral time helping?
Well, I think a lot of it just has to do with the initial part of the process. And again, understanding the things that are going to put you on a course for obtaining, or hitting the goals that you are trying to achieve. And let me tell you something, as you said, I've been doing this 16 years and I love it. And still to this day, it is a process even for me. Because one thing that we never get back is our time. And just like you said, time is money. If I spend 35 minutes on a call with someone that I can't help right now, how is that going to come back to me in the end, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think a lot of it has come with experience. A lot of it has come with training. Some of it's a little bit of intuition, but I also just go back to, I think if you relay the right information in a very honest way, you're going to get the right information in an honest way back. And I think the biggest thing when you're talking to especially newer candidates and newer clients is that you don't overpromise and underdeliver, and that you don't kind of sell something that you don't have. I tell a lot of my clients, if I can send one or two people in 90 days, that's going to be a pretty good success. Not only that, if I send 2 clinical candidates on any one position, I have about a 75% chance of making a placement. And that's just because I'm in such a niche industry. There's only about 7,500 people out there, and the trust factor is a two-way street, right? And so another thing with that is I've been in the industry long enough. I've grown up, like I said, in the industry. A lot of the people who, are in hiring positions now were residents and were new practitioners that I was talking with every single week when I was getting started in 2010. And so trust is built over time by doing the right things, and then hopefully, you get a good reputation in the marketplace, and then you start to kind of get referrals. And I think the best thing that can really happen is word of mouth. And then when you get other people kind of talking about, positive light in the industry, there's just a little bit of that initial facade that kind of just comes down. And then when you have 2 people who can have very, very open and honest conversations, it makes it a lot easier to kind of decipher how I may or may not be able to help. And look, I'll tell you, there are some organizations that I will tell them, like, I don't think this is the best route right now. Like, let me tell you, here's what you should do. I want you to put an ad out in the O&P Edge. I'll go ahead and do a LinkedIn posting. It sounds like you really haven't tried to look for yourself. Why don't you look for yourself and see what you get in the first 30 to 60 days? And then I'll make a note to kind of follow up after that. I've got a sticky note right here as I'm looking right here that says, hey, follow up with this company in 45 days. And it all goes back to, to trust. And I don't necessarily I don't want that to be the only thing that we talk about today, but there's so many different tactics, with questioning and pull back and so forth from a sales standpoint. There's so many different things that you can do, but ultimately, your overall strategy has to be to help, and you have to be able to kind of weed out the things that are going to stand in the way of you and the organization and your person that you're working with, helping you get to the goals. And some of it, Vince, is trial and error. I mean, if you've got a company that maybe they're a good company, but maybe they have a broken process, I mean, the first time you talk to them, you're not going to be able to completely overhaul their process. But, as you hopefully are able to demonstrate your value, whether it is you filling positions or whether it's just, providing that access of information that maybe they didn't have before, they're going to start to hopefully listen to you a little more about the things that are going to help them achieve their goals. And so it's just like you said, it is a double-edged sword, because you've got to be open enough to understand that not everything's going to be perfect. And that's something I do think I do pretty well. We've got 60 positions at one time. I know that it's unrealistic that we're going to fill all 60. I want to fill all 60. I'm going to try to fill all 60. But a lot of times that's just not going to happen. And so we've got to be able to kind of pick and choose the things that we're going to work on and we're going to concentrate on. And, screening, understanding, obviously going back to asking those right questions of the right people, making sure you're talking to the right person, right? I mean, you might speak with somebody who maybe doesn't have the authority to make decisions, and then you're not necessarily any further along than you were 30 minutes ago when you took that. But so much of it is a process, and there's only so much you can learn from the training. Some of it's just going to have doing. And like, the training was fantastic. I'm again, very lucky in that back in, I think 2011, I was able to go to MRI training in Philadelphia when they were doing it in person. And, I had a whole group that came in with me. Several of the people have gone on to become pace setters and whatnot that we kind of keep up with. And I go back to things that I learned in that training day in and day out, every day that I've been in this business.
You've experienced a time where technology can and a lot is distracting us from success. How do you manage technology to maintain your success?
Absolutely. That's a really, really good question, by the way. A really good question. You've got to use the technology, and I'll just use example, texting, Zoom, we can even talk about, Zoom info and data collectors and things like that. You've got to use that technology to supplement your business, and not kind of cannibalize, the other things that you've always done. The phone and face-to-face human connection, there's nothing that replaces that. There are a lot of things that we can do that are going to help us for the in-betweens. When I first started recruiting, and this is actually really cool to kind of tell like this story. When I first started recruiting with my uncle, this is even before we had ATS systems, So whenever we would get a new job, I had bookshelves behind me with boxes of resumes. And so if we needed an engineering manager in Texas, I'm going to go to the engineering manager box, and I'm going to go through and call everybody. And, we've got a resume and then a sheet that we just write notes on. And then obviously you see how that's been, digitized and what have you, with our PCRs and with our bullhorn and with our applicant tracking softwares that make things a lot easier for us to access that information and then get to it. But you can't just rely on technology to get you to where you need to go. It all goes back to the fundamentals. I use technology every day. I do things every day now that I didn't do 10 years ago. I used to I used to make 70, cold calls a day kind of when I first got started. I don't even know if that's possible now. When I made 70 cold calls, 50 people would pick up the phone. Even if I had gatekeepers, 50 people would pick up the phone. And then you talk about technology and the, how much it helps us. Well, I mean, the caller ID stuff probably doesn't help us, quite as much. And so you definitely do got to find other ways to do it. And so if I'm setting up interviews and things like that, I spend my day like this. I really do. But talking on the phone, human to human connection, human to human interaction, there is no replacing that. And so we can use all of these different tools. I mean, at the end of the day, I think technology, a lot of this technology, it kind of adheres a little more to our tactics, but we still kind of have the same overall strategies and let's just say overall recruiting disposition. I still do it the same way I did it 13 years ago. Do I have different tools that I use to help me get there? Is it a little different in the day-to-day process? Yes. But at its core, I still do the things that I learned in Philadelphia, as a 24-year-old with a better hairline, and so forth to this day.
So let's capsulate that, because I think the message is incredible. Technology is a tool that complements the phone and the face-to-face.
Exactly.
It isn't the reverse. It isn't technology is what I do all day long, and then I get on the phone or I go face-to-face. It's absolutely, technology is a tool. I'm encapsulating what you just said. Technology is your tool that complements and inspires and helps the phone and the face-to-face, because the phone and the face-to-face is what's making you money. Absolutely.
If you're on a ship going across the ocean, technology is not the ship. Technology is the GPS that we have. Technology is the new electric rowers, so that you don't necessarily have all this manpower, but it will never be the ship.
Great analogy. Great.
Thank you.
Awesome analogy. What excites you most about the future, Riley?
That's a great question. I might have to think about that for a little bit. I mean, professionally, I'd say there's a lot of opportunity right now in the industry. There's been a lot of consolidation lately. I work with both the service providers themselves that, actually hire people who fit these patients with artificial limbs as well as custom braces. And then I also work with the organizations that make the devices and componentry that support the service providers. And so there's been a lot of change in the marketplace, and anytime there's change, there's also a lot of weariness, I guess. But on the backside of that change, that also creates an opportunity once people have adopted it. I do think, at least as an industry, orthotics and prosthetics, and for short, it's called O&P. So if I refer to it as O&P going forward, just know that that's kind of the little world that I live in every single day. But we're getting to the point where we're on some of the backside of that change, and I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for me, not only to work with, I don't want to say necessarily newer organizations, but to just get a better and deeper connection with the companies that I've been working with for years that now have larger operations and more needs. Personally, I don't know. That's a really, really good question. I've been in this long enough, and I've luckily, very, very, very luckily, been in a place where I've had some success, and I am starting to, really enjoy some of the fruits of my labor. And so I've only been to one other country. And then my youngest half brother is in the military. His name is Nick. He's a military police officer. He's about to go on his second deployment to South Korea. He leaves in a week or two. So if you're watching, I love you, Nick. Anyway, sorry about that. But I want to travel. I want to go, and I want to experience things that I haven't personally experienced. Danny, you mentioned Danny's a big traveler, and I know he's been able to talk to you a little bit about his excursions and so forth. And I'm the oldest of four boys. One of them was a half brother, and he's 17 years younger than I. I've always been a little bit of that protector of my family. And now that, they're a little older and kind of out in the world, I can start kind of looking at some things that I've always wanted to do. I wouldn't mind going to play St. Andrews. I think that would be really exciting. But I'd also love to just kind of experience some things that I've never experienced. I've always been someone who's gotten after it pretty much all the time. I've worked full time since I was 15. Before I even started recruiting, I had 2 jobs in college. My family, I had a little brother when I was 16. And so that'll definitely kind of change some things with maybe how your plans are. But I tell you, I didn't plan necessarily for anything to end up maybe how it did with where I am today. But it absolutely worked out the way that it was always supposed to. And I am so thankful. So, professionally, definitely think there's some opportunity with some of the changes happening in the industry. Personally, I'm just looking forward to doing some things that I've always dreamt about. And thankfully, thanks to recruiting, thanks to the Newell Group, and thanks to orthotics and prosthetics, I will have a chance to do some of that. And it's really exciting.
So first of all, on a personal nature, please send my appreciation and my thanks to your brother for his service.
Thank you.
Because
thank you.
I'll tell you what, without those boys out there, girls out there giving of themselves, we wouldn't be having the opportunities we have here today. So please pass that on. Second of all,
thank you.
Riley, you wear your heart, your passion, your love for everything right on your sleeve. I'm going to say something that's going to sound silly to you. Okay?
No, sure. Yeah.
Don't change.
No, I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Danny, when I first started, Danny, Danny used to kind of make the joke. I would, whenever the phone would, for whatever reason, get past our office manager, if she wasn't at the desk or what have you, he wanted me to answer the phone, because I'd say, "Hey, thank you for calling the Newell Group. This is Riley. How may I direct your call?" And Danny, he kind of said, it could be like, "Hey, this is Riley. There's a fire outside. How can I direct your call?" Or, "Hey, this is Riley. Someone just crashed into the building." And I've just kind of always been like that. I'm a high energy person, and I understand that about myself. And I'm even going to piggyback this into, recruiting in general. One of the things that I love so much about recruiting is that, all of us recruiters and all of us like really, really good recruiters, hopefully, we all start off with this blank canvas. And then it's kind of up to us as far as how we're going to get that picture on the canvas. Are we going to use a paintbrush? Are we going to use a sprayer? There's all these different things that you can do. And I've had the opportunity to really, talk to a lot of different, very, very successful recruiters who do it very, very differently than I do. But they all kind of find something that they're really, really good at. And then that's what helps them to differentiate themselves, and I can just right off the top of my head, like Krista Whiting, and I know a lot of our MRI people know Krista Whiting. Krista's awesome, someone I definitely keep up with, and she's kind of found her niche in what she's been able to do to, kind of put herself out there and whatnot. And for me personally, I have always been high energy and personable guy, and I want to use that as much as possible in what I do. And it goes the other way too, Vince. It is a double-edged sword, right? Like I said, I'd like to think that I'm positive most of the time, but when the roller coaster's down, you know where I stand, and I'm sure Danny will tell you that. It's so funny because we've got another really, really good recruiter that's worked with us for many years, Casey Craven. He runs our food manufacturing desk. I don't know if you've met Casey. Yep. Just fantastic guy. And Casey does it the exact opposite way. He is even keel. You can't tell if he just closed $100,000 worth of business or just lost 4 deals to competitors, and I am the exact opposite. And maybe I have had to hone it a little bit here and there, but I never want to lose it because that's what makes me. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing, and that's a good thing to anybody and everybody who wants to, make this their career. And it is a fantastic career. It really gives you the opportunity to help a lot of people. But if there's just one tiny little bit of advice, find what you're really good at and be really good at it. And then you don't have to do this the way that this person does it or the way that this person does it, as long as you can get to exactly what it is you're looking for. And so I know I need to get better at organization. You can't see right now, but it does look like a hurricane around my desk. There's a lot of things that I can get better at, but I've always been a recruiter that I feel that's kind of been able to stay in the moment. Okay. And that's something that's very important to me.
Let me add one little thing.
Yeah.
Because of your energy, because of your passion, don't ever get comfortable.
Oh, I know. I know. Trust me. And that's a really, really good thing to put. And that's been a challenge. That's part of the challenge, right? Because I started off as a PC. I worked in another industry as an AE even before I went to corporate America. I came back, in a leadership position. It's all worked out the way that it's supposed to. But complacency, it's probably the number one recruiter killer, right? And especially like right now, there's just so much availability in the marketplace. And there's new people that get into it every single year for the first time in quite a few years. We've got another person who's doing recruiting in orthotics and prosthetics, super nice guy. I've talked to him and whatnot. But you've got to kind of keep that hunger and keep that passion. One of the things I told you a little earlier on here is that I've always been a little bit of a manic. And a lot of that just goes back to being big brother. I'm the runt too. I'm the oldest and I'm the runt. And so I don't pick on them like I used to, but I've always had a little bit of that. Nothing's quite as good as it seems, and nothing's quite as bad as it seems. And you've got to live that for sure.
That's exactly right. Look, Riley, I want to thank you I mean, you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things going on, and I appreciate you and Danny allowing you to come on to this thing and be a part of this. I think clients, I think candidates, I think other AEs, I think owners that view this are going to learn a lot about you, your culture, your drives, and I think they're going to take some things away from you that they really admire and appreciate and try and teach that into their people as well. Again, Riley, thank you very much for your time.